dear church, therefore Pope, etc. And where you have had no will to hurt kids or elderly. Shh. Your identities. If you get, when I ask over the Facebook page, the Archdiocese of Hartford for a response for an O'Brien family. Now, these are juxtaposed natures of child abuses. There are sexually natured ones, and there are juxtaposed mental health, quote, mental health, unquote. So there are a number of families named DeMorrow. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, for example, with a whole bunch of other countries, like Korea. And like people that are with overt criminal enterprises from different countries that are also with family members involved with judges and prosecutors and with their family members, friends, and uses of corners, uses of the databases at the schools, private and public, connected for their own each age of fact-cheating nature as victim predators. But if you refer to them as victims, you have to entertain their logic, which is predators. If you refer to them as predators, they pretend you're attacking them because they're keeping a quality of fact-cheating nature that is incapable of countering the roles with the predicate acts delivery system method that is simultaneously confessed, recorded, and demonstrating having been self-valued because of recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, self-valued, simultaneously also effectively maintained, self-valued, criminally foreign influences. Sciences further with this, additionally to that, which is to all locations, and then further grouped sciences, specifically to knowing and having known. It would be in conjunction with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and private ones with these games. So they're playing wire crime games. They're replacing what's actually recorded audio and video with fabricated audio and video. Descriptions, increasing the amounts and natures of and methods of and names associated with wire crimes. For example, WFSB, NBC Connecticut News, and Fox Connecticut News, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also rules with police forms and courts with predicate acts next to the kids and the kids next to the kids with spots next to the kids that the kids hang out with, and uses of corners, and uses of locations next to religious locations, including Jewish community centers, including religious locations. They're needing people to fight because they have been lying in cases. The overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, and the interbranch, differentially, individually grouped in themselves, differentially, constantly, increasingly, criminally foreign influence. We are in a semi-ancient trap that cannot defend the sciences, their takes on what they call legitimate treatments of premises, when they're using passions and emotions to speak for things like science or sciences, or about what is plural when they say that and what is singular. Everything is in demonstration of how one identity of simultaneous nature is that which inventions work or not in relationship to it, and they are further positive or not in relationship to it. The beginning of the Old Testament says that we're only supposed to understand, we only need to understand right up to here. And the sciences come together. Doesn't mean as a unity, as criminal insidiousness nature of unity. And unity is invisible, but so still discernible. So it's still only negative value nature if it's not positive by what it is a semi-nature relationship to. There are bound, distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. For example, that gaining value as the value distinct as the sequence simultaneous nature that water is, and with its elements going through the cells. of a tomato plant. And then, as one identity of sequence nature, more finite than the smallest detail, therefore the smallest observable detail, no matter what we do to make the small, finite, observable. So the is the definite article. A and N are the indefinite articles of English. And everything is relative to this relativity science that uses the actually invisible but still discernible identity of value/value progression. And it uses as evidence how people are pretending passions and emotions and defending themselves by increasingly self-valuing criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments, such as experts, such as natures of charities. There are no jobs. You have to do it this way now. When problems happen, those things are making sure we don't have, things are right. We have to have standards. At the same time, this breaching method that came making modern nations, value being knaves, K-N-A-V-E, it wasn't just to exploit it there, formally. It was to make it exploited at all identity ground locations where it was the cause. The proverbial devil, not a ghost. An archetypal criminal enterprise. One with complete remote possession of the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, and the branches. How? Because he's complete remote possession of the human fact treatment nature and of its premises treatments, individually grouped and together. Every single person at each age of correlation nature is remained self-valued, criminally foreign influenced, per the method that knew no one would fathom this, while nature is continuing to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in demonstration of it. But see, we came through self-valued roles, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, and worse, taking a shock and awe to entertain worse, to entertain what you can't entertain, to pretend what is speaking for the law is legitimate. In other words, what is speaking for the law it can't defend itself and us at the same time. For example, with their treatments of an insurrection. I apologize for America. In other words, they're leaving out what is simultaneous. When someone asks a question or they bring up witch trials, I apologize. Because in other words, they leave that and how slavery was simultaneously there. They teach right through our own schools still, and through other country schools, that our founders set that up. The whole fake sciences. These are the people, suits and ties to levels of it. These are people kept needing to hide life progressions, kept needing to hide self-valued roles with a use of all locations that everyone missed. This is database relationships since before computers, before America's founding parents were even born, before the church was even born, before Constantine was even born, before Caesar was even murdered, before Romulus and Remus, real or made up. Romulus and Remus are a science. Yeah. The means come clear. Peer, I said, not fear. So, if we try to use short words, see, forging names and switching names and fabricating letters and wire crimes, other methods of them, on and off campuses and with the news media. This is at locations online and through the only media, multi-front, sickly, distinctly, predicate acts and roles with the same natures of organized crime, child abuses, and elderly abuses simultaneously. Name stacking. Because these are people everyone's speaking through where both political parties can't afford because their members, everyone's been using information in quote intelligence community unquote, quoting Jim Sciutto, CNN's Jim Sciutto. I'm sorry, it's nothing personal. You guys have that Facebook pages. You guys have the Twitter. No one's going to respond legitimately with online police. They're criminally foreign influence schools they came through. Their delusions rot, but they're also rules crimes predators. And so they're needing to hide that more and more. In other words, we have had means. In other words, this is every identity. The ground location is still at the end of the whip, and not by accident. The ones that are at the best locations are blaming other things other than themselves for the real causes of all the negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures upon them. And everyone can't discern it because everyone rolls with it from the youngest grades up. All the answers are with short logic, but they have this method through their own kids because the identity of locations were already used by the branches of government. They have the positive and negative treatments. They've been slandering me behind my back with people that are pretending to be Homeland by pretending to be or directed to be, like KKK themed, Confederate flag themed. And these are military police switching names, forging names. American military with Kuwaiti military. Excuse me, Kuwait. And in the name of, therefore, the person of Iraq. It means the person of the human species volume that just happens to be on what's called Iraq, because modern nations A through Z are not allowed individually, sickly, distinctly. Not one of them is allowed to tell about how all the reasons why and how they're too criminally foreign influenced to pretend integrity, where and how that was is forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to be pretended, even though our founders wanted us to say other. Even though George Washington didn't say it, it is more probable that he meant and wants us to say that, and how he cannot tell a lie. And he did not want anything to do with slavery. It was entrenched here with laws against anyone from saying other. By intercultural. This made people stewards. The sciences are individually grouped in together. Sickly, distinctly, criminally foreign influenced. Not to keep out non-distinctly from being discerned too. Ever to see how those history guys, I bet you it's the same thing in Italy, and when they're speaking Italy, in English, well, in the 14th century before, and the way they use evidences, and when they use the identity, a dictator, or democracy, or there was hunters and gatherers. Cultivation was demonstrated by the system that revealed the republic for which America stands, still criminally foreign influenced, as the nations of our species, identity of volume that revealed this together, being led by that which is the real cause of positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, evolutions, fruits, and gifts, and means from nowhere. See, instead we have people defending and pretending passions and emotions, what is said by the end of the Quran, or by parts after the beginning, first sequence part. And then the same thing with the Old Testament. And they knew people would have to pretend others. So what they do, they fed them with the New Testament. But what about the Old Testament in English? See, there was like collusion that would have been discerned and overcome, while there was consciously making sure means being taken to make sure that Italy, Italians, and or Romans before it was Italian, and that England and the people they were there before they were England would not remember the sciences and their words as what causes positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, or which demonstrates. In other words, we have the perfect leader, which is not a person, thank God. In other words, Alpha and Omega. This is why Alpha is the beginning, alphabet. A stands for Alpha. And Alpha spells out a sentence. So a letter spells a word, and a word spells out a sentence. Alpha longs. Alpha longs. People's high Alpha. Alpha spells out Alpha longs. People's high Alpha. High. See, we grow low to high. The lowercase letters. See, the English was revealed to teach by and as the identities of the body, of the identity of volume. That is also an identity of invisible but still discernible conjunction to well as all things. Again, that and the identity of science reveals this properly. See, evolution theory, they put theories forward into the sciences, distinctly, non-distinctly. They put volume theory forward rather than allowing, offensively, to keep fact cheap in nature from using correlation shortened words properly, while people are increasingly corrupting the long words of each age of fact cheap in nature, each age of correlation nature, regarding response to things. That's a trap by the branches of governments of each modern nation and by the lawyers associated with them and the private ones. For example, when they, and all kind of other, for example, where they bring up and use the environment. Because there is what our nature longs to overcome. There is what our nature knows is unnatural. See, these are what not our means. It is recorded since before cars, the zoning laws and stuff, that things that need to protect us were also having been employed by a breaching method here, there, everywhere, that knew it was causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And they knew that it had nature demonstrating it also. And they knew that it had victim predators that would occupy identity ground locations relative to recordings and uses of those locations relative to the laws that were slavery against people, slavery against, witch trials against people, onto all locations, words, where the crime was being able to talk about certain things. So what are you going to do? You're going to use other words. And America's founding parents had to hide their roles with a revolution. They had to counter-extort the founders to narratives, about the Constitution on the bridge, even though they couldn't defend that, or anyone who was going to try to defend that by using short words in the revolution, in the revelations. In other words, complete possession of the sciences individually grouped and together was left entrenched. But so all we have to do, when I say shh, it's because all they need is you guys to defend your identity as other than human. And you guys to and or call me a name. I'm not asking I'm just asking for who denies this. Connecticut interbranch judges have been forging and switching names. They have CNN involved with elections and with other natures of reporting and advertisement involved with people on, off, in private, and people next to body dumping spots. Involved on, off campuses, intercities through time, private and public, where they coordinate. Identity thefts, frauds, instances, and uses of them. Slanders. Uses of them, also how they're sustained. So a guy wants a young boy to their men. In other words, making it increasingly hard for people to meet to meet the girls are only hearing things through guys. And it's also their timed uses of ground locations. The ones playing these games with the wire crimes, with the media, because they have judges, and with the lawyers. There's a Trantolo and Trantolo also involved with the judges playing these games to keep people from talking, because they were fabricating audio and video. With the interbranch, with the schools involved with their kids already, they painted themselves. They lied with the media. They had a community meeting. They hid what I caught them doing. Also on and off the campuses connected. Also with foreign and domestic doctors of mental health, with drugs and medicines crimes, and as the ones supposed to be countering that stuff. Using their databases attached little kids and their families to fake words and fake ties to other people and their own family members themselves. Fake natures of ties to people and themselves and their family members. These are people that have been covering lipoaggressions at hospital locations, at fire department locations, at their houses, at other people's houses by calling the police. There are a whole bunch of ways originally still. Remote uses of all the criminally foreign influence, fact-cheating natures of the people supposed to be against that. How that was used remotely. And that is used remotely. And the more it is being used remotely, the more they are increasingly having to self-value. That having been blamed on other things, others and ourselves. So we have those stupid inflections of the people who speak about American history, the way they play music and stuff like that. Not for the reasons they pretend or even understand. And the delusions, they would be able themselves able to discern them and overcome them. But the experts on delusions are delusions wrought, and their roles with database racketeering, not just with drugs and medicines crimes, with all various natures of courts already, and with the people that run the prisons with them, and the campuses that train them individually grouped and together. Through time, intercities connected, not just ways known, unknown, unfathomed. Known and unknown, and methodically unknown and unfathomed. Known. We have criminally foreign influence locations, areas, states. We have family members of overt criminal enterprises per themselves, on and off the campuses, also involved, with the names of the identities dealing with each age of correlation nature. No, therefore, name. So there were timed instances on and off everyone's home, on and off where they're going to go, walk, drive the car, go to school. That could be timed. And it is used effectively to keep offensive evidence reception racketeering. That is criminally foreign influence the way worse, increasingly self-valued. And that exploited through its relevance to other things, and where and how they have the victim predators. Where they've been using the time for forced education for legitimate means, instead to play games. Because way worse is exploiting, is needing their motivations for evil and for insidious natures of positive and negative treatments and collusion at all locations, areas, and states of each modern nation. So we have people that are only capable of defending themselves by the way they were told to respect identity and title. For example, in collusion with that breaching method, where they were told to speak about the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. They were taught to do so, blaming things on other people, other things, and ourselves, rather than blame it on what is actually discernible. And rather than allow a quality of fact, cheap nature capable of countering insidious natures of positive and negative treatments that are mass self-value. In other words, please make sure if you make the archdiocese respond, because the Wethersfield Police Department are one of the people associated, and as some of the people associated with the various religious locations, and pretended integrity by crossing their hands or whatever. You know, they have roles with forging names, switching names, falsifying police reports, self-value roles with the other police forms and the other family members of themselves and their police department. Even how what they call integrity, just because they were police, just because they were courts. In other words, they are instilled with the overt criminal enterprises, plural, different countries, and the ones privately here. They don't care about us. They care about going through their jobs, defending what they said about jobs and economy and stuff like that. They left out exceptions and exception nature. They don't really care about religion. Increasingly, they self-value. The lack of science /S, integrity, creeping over and having crept over into the fact, cheap nature, identity nature at the religious locations, specifically to maintain people consciously, methodically, effectively, self-value, obfuscation of the original abridgments of the Constitution of which America was supposed to stand, of which we were supposed to have a free speech. See, but they have the little people on playing politics. That's why if I wanted to hurt them, I would ask them simple questions. And they're not going to respond. So why are they on Facebook? Then they say they're getting involved with other people's business. And that's not by accident. They're pretending in their minds that the church, that courts, men and women too, wouldn't get behind the same thing that they know, even if they made up what the church did with the kids. Especially if they made it up differentially too, which is also evidence. The courts have roles with this. They have complete possession. They have women judges involved with this. Everyone's playing stupid though, because they've been using the courts to fabricate audio and video. So we still have sick, fake courts, witch trials. We have people that pretending they should be, their arguments as men and women are legitimate, as races are legitimate, and everyone's speaking through others too. No. And with this nature of conversation, and with color, and with their roles, with methods of offensive evidence racketeering, having people say allusions and things out of sequence after they already said and communicated other things, and after others actually recorded. We have courts and the people tied to them putting fake things and lying about cases in courts, because the hierarchy originally and still is criminally foreign influenced. And so therefore they're only leaving the top ones of the agencies, like former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. His co-defendants are one of the ones involved with the other countries and with the DeMauro family, as people involved with. There's an officer, Jerry Miller, real or made up, on Facebook said that before the pandemic, he's involved with predicate acts. He was pretending that I was growing pot on my porch, and he was saying things about the northern side of my house. They also have roles with predicate acts in insidiousness relative at all sides of my house through time connected and with names connected. These are officers that have been attaching me and my family to fake locations, fake words with themselves. Since I was a kid, fake ties to themselves and others, distinctly from the judicial branch that has been doing that also. They consciously, the executive branch and judicial branch, confess, demonstrate, and record to grammar school kids that and how they're criminally foreign influenced, differentially, constantly, increasingly. For example, relative to when they're pretending, and they also communicate that and how they pretend to other passions and emotions by exploitations of conscious separation of subjects, like Native American rights, black rights they call it. See, they do this. They're dividing and conquering. I mean, I don't want to use the phrase. They're dividing out the relevance of the simultaneous nature. That is actual positive. It's not criminal insidiousness. Nature's like a wrongdoer's take on positive. But it's not criminal enterprises the way they have them grouped. That's why the witch trials simultaneous value with the slavery, being and having been entrenched in America, and being and having been formally blamed on other things, others and ourselves. Complete consumption of the time and the quality of the fact sheet nature and of the sequence nature of the kids at each age of fact sheet nature. A lot of those parents need to get right back in school because of how they need to hide how they've been using locations. That when the truth's to lie. In other words, they use the truth that they can tell lies, and that they're supposed to hide things, to hide their own personal uses of locations, like near water, where people can meet strangers. Then even if they meet strangers, they play these games in the background. When you have enemies that are criminally foreign influenced and/or delusions wrought, and/or rules, crimes, predators simultaneously, like former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members. Also coordinated between Trinity College and CCSU and child campuses, relevant predicate acts, names, and roles with remote uses of them. With that, further with Principal Child Defenders Campus. They've been preventing people from reporting things also by attaching the family members and everyone to fake conversations with each other and with themselves and with their family members preemptively. All kinds of foreign and domestic doctors and people involved with overt criminal enterprises are personally involved with the elements and the people at New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, involved with locations, crimes, intercities, and on off campuses leading up to the World Trade Center attack, in it, and since. So they even investigators, they have studies, people involved with studies through Central Connecticut State University that were first as kids involved with predicate acts that they didn't understand. But they took, in other words, they were fit to roles with it. Sequence shifts, slanders, uses of exception nature to pretend that they could pretend to perceive as something that looks down on someone's character, trying to do that, knowing it was exception they made valuable for me and for other people of each age to bring up. When people do things that are unnatural because they're unnatural impositions against us that are connected through time. For example, so investigators have been using their kids, have been using themselves and private ones for offensive evidence reception racketeering. That increasingly needs to value having been hurt correlation nature, the short words at each age of fact-cheating nature sickly distinctly. Instead, short words, obfuscated. Short words that are not clear, that are not concise. For example, quoting a Struck and White book called Essentials. I forgot the name of the book. Essentials of Writing, or the Elements of Style. But see, they have obfuscated the short words proper, the convictions proper regarding conjunction, regarding the independence, regarding the individual's voice and identity of volume. When humanity is in a positive value nature progression, everyone instantly is valuing the voice of every individual first, in sequence, then group differences in order of importance, and then species, identity of volume /S. That simultaneous nature is in demonstration to us. No one invented that. So we have a whole bunch of things that were claimed as medicine and as science, that were really uses of identity ground locations and racketeering of juxtaposed natures stacked in databases with fake things that are illusions. No, predicate acts into databases, predicate act methods against people sustained. Not one has trained. They have nerve to pretend passions and emotions when they speak for science. Passions and emotions were about the simultaneous, not about quality of fact, cheaping nature that it wants to call out an emotion because they timed where the people are going to walk and they're going to say something in that implies things, and they know how to say things through strangers that are going to make other people say they're not strangers. In other words, the functions at each age, why people can't mind their business, and how that just by accident prevents anyone from using all the means by correlation, all the revelations by correlation / discorrelation, where they get American history wrong up front. They're increasingly valuing how they understand more knowledge of American history, America's history stewards, for example, to get over on people with using how, they're pretending that Marbury versus Madison, quote, Marbury, I was just doing boxing before, talking in a boxing forum. And my father was my trainer, but he didn't want me to box. Then my last fight was right before the World Trade Center attack. There are people over the last 6 months, involved with Wethersfield Police. It was since before this, since I was a kid. But distinctly, since before this, they brought more names up with the Wethersfield Police. And one of them, they said, was an Officer Sullivan. Sounded like a little punk kid. His voice cracked on the phone from the Wethersfield town offices, and from I called the Wethersfield police. They confirmed it. Now these are Wethersfield police, family members and cliques, and with other police forms, intercities too, interstates too, and with military police that have been forging names, switching names, fabricating police reports, criminally foreign influence uses of untimely deaths, and of the locations of the untimely deaths before, during that, and since, including the World Trade Center attack, WFSB, NBC, Connecticut News, and Fox Connecticut News recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Have roles also with people like intercities leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since, with all kinds of insidious, offensive evidence, reception, racketeering, identity thefts, and frauds instances, even categorically timed and involved. Like with a Joseph Dennis, involved with slanders against me, identity thefts and frauds, and physical delusions with investigators and insurance companies that I don't know the names of. In other words, people involved with a former Mayor Gold and a Joseph Aiello are also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he did, that he has roles on Facebook with the courts and police forms, influencing people to say things on Facebook so they can bring people before courts that need to hide the same predicate acts roles with them. Stacking roles with self-valued, stacking fake things into databases at each age of campuses, and kids that never had classes with each other. And some kind of sick thing with, in other words, they had to hide lipoaggressions and bad things. An Aiello family. So they used the boyfriends and people with the fire department and locations next to Trinity College. Criminally foreign influence since they were kids. Involved with identity thefts and frauds, trying to film fake things, boxings, and with other sides of the, Trinity College and CCSU. Also involved with them with predicate acts. Officers forging names, switching names. Even one using the name Darth Vader at Trinity College with this. So you all will learn of force, but learn first of source. To know boxings, it teaches things. It is the value of the force while it is all that the force could ever be. Discern to see. I forgot I was speaking to you. With all respect, please, Mr. Pope. Formal title. I'm going to ask on the Facebook page of the Hartford Diocese for the name of who disbelieves anything I've said on Facebook regarding the child abuses at the campuses and at the corners involved. Because the people that the Wethersfield police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed further uses of the Facebook page of the Principal Child Offenders Campus and the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court. Now, with those are passion crimes because they were involved before the World Trade Center. I caught them on-off campuses with fact-cheating nature racketeering, pretending people to fake locations with others, even on campuses that are filmed 24/7. They're using that to put things that make things are fake. We have them hiding with their roles with all these other countries and with these locations like on-off Town Line Drive is one of the things that they all commonly said is involved with people with the corners of the schools where they make confessions to strangers and or right around the and one person came to me in the middle of what was his name? Some came with a clipboard. He wasn't in my grade. A Daryl Chandler, and he approached me when I was going through the cafeteria. So right when I was in the middle, he approached me with the cafeteria. I didn't respond. He confirmed, confessed, demonstrated, recorded when I was in high school roles with some Korean families and with families that went to a Taekwondo place. Intercities were involved with predicate acts of juxtaposed natures of child abuses roles, identity thefts and frauds roles, offensive evidence reception racketeering roles, falsified police reports roles, roles with all kinds of cases criminally tied to that, and their roles with people with the intelligence community at the corner of Church Street and Main Street with a Heather Hansen and with a Joe DeMauro and with people with the name Gilmore and other names involved with predicate acts, also with other houses on that street and other houses on the corners through time. Also forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to roles with predicate acts with Wethersfield Police and other police forms. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, like a Thaddeus Grabowski, also involved with Eric Mendez and with his brother, with predicate acts, intercities, on-off Wethersfield Police Department, identity thefts and frauds, falsified police reports, attaching me to fake quotation, speaking with the Mendez older one, as their roles. Also attaching and having attached Saudi people to forced roles with their predicate acts leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. Having forced deans and their family members and their roles with the communities, with the sciences individually grouped together and where they go. And what actually is to inter-science off campuses locations with the training of each age of fact treatment nature, with their studies, the real value of their studies, of their questions with polling places, of their questions about people's opinions about the polling, vaccines. So right through administrations, there's something there is also an officer named Hunter that's involved. I don't know if that's the real name because they're like misspelling their falsified police report methods roles. Intercities, Hartford courts are involved also, having offered my father him to use that court for depositions, for defending former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, for his co-defendants, not to help him, because I had caught those courts outside of campuses, self-recorded, roles with a whole bunch of natures of child abuse, identity thefts and frauds, and uses of identity ground locations for it, offensive evidence reception racketeering, worse than war crimes, as the people involved now with the military police and increasing amounts of Wethersfield officers and other police forms forging and switching names, increasing names therefore needed to be used by me, and people, sick fakes, punks in the background are using my name, using the name of women, using the name of girls, using truths like someone raised their voice, because that's why they make the confessions. They don't want me to tell what they made the confessions about. They even have the experts that counter such things like child abuses as family members involved, kept needing to hide roles with such because of how they have the girls speaking to the guys too. Some sick, in other words, sick fake punks. I never had a conversation, never was around on campus a Chick Casper in my life. There's something with all along route, Church Street and Old Wethersfield and Main Street, all the way from there up Wells Road, all the way from here through Newington and to Central Connecticut State University, through time having been, names were stacked with roles, needed to hide sequence shifts, finite active progressive lies, identity thefts and frauds instances, uses of them roles, offensive evidence reception racketeering, leveraged against everyone, including them. But they're furthering it. And so that's all used self-value. And all that's used too. Because all that is used by the breaching method. What is slavery about? Slavery is about a predicate acts delivery system method that had witch trials simultaneously. And so now we can discern the method there. They were blaming groups wrong. They had to counter the real causes of Negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness nature, wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself. So they knew that the countries would blame the groups wrong. They would group fact, cheat, nature wise. They would respond to the real causes of negative value nature progressions acts wrong. They would use names wrong. They would self-value roles doing that. As victim predators. More and more as predators. More and more as victims, but more and more as victim predators. Incapable of defending their fact, cheat, nature formally. And us from what exploits that. Right through countries A1 through Z, however many there are. Fake identity. Right to where they have the people that are happy. Oh, we're a Teamster. We're a union member. They have complete possession. They have that even in play. All kind of pension cram downs. Thefts. By the same people pretending to be for them. All kind of uses of overt criminal enterprises and of private ones. Per them, the only reason I don't do anything because they blamed on other things other than themselves because they have the people they countered them with criminal enterprises with already were in collusion with them. Killers, people next to the body in dumping spots, kept knitting to hide the same sequence shifts, finite active progressive lies with the investigators. For example, relative to what caused witch trials. They are incapable of defending, of answering things. So they are increasingly self-valuing. The stewards of science is using knowledge to get over on life, to get over on correlation nature. So I use the parts after. I don't even have to know them all. All I need to know is how you use this sequence true. Why did what's the narrative of a religious places not allowing people to communicate about things in front, in public, when people in the background are fake and have been using other people's names with churches, fake. They've been crossing their hands and pretending to be, we're just a sinner though. Get them on paper from the names, forging and switching names into branch, because these are their background sources with them. Please, Mr. Pope, I'll show them. Each fake branch is dope. In campus, yet with stolen name. Republic 2, and here and there and everywhere, boxings, it teaches things. I'll show you how to defend the kids. Please make sure that Wethersfield police and that Wethersfield schools respond to me now. Respond to me now. And don't let them, if they want us to pretend it's regression, because I speak a little bit aggressive here, because they pretend to be the fake aggression. They've been doing that with the kids and their family members, putting it to fake. They've been even replaced, even on courts, and even in interbranch locations. They've been putting people, even little kids, to fake conversations with themselves, because they had the kids, little rat mobs going in there, because they set them up as victims, only capable of being victim predators, with a rat trap where they set these arrays up, where with sides of their fact cheating natures, where if you entertain that, you're in collusion with it. Those are the same people that consciously know that they're separating Native American rights and black rights while they're simultaneously pretending other people are prejudiced and setting up little traps to make them look prejudiced, timed and right at corner locations. I'm gonna reveal some sick offensive evidence racketeering from locations, areas, and states. That means a lot of names. I don't even know. These are people that cannot defend themselves, and they already spoke in the news. The news already attached people to fake words. They had already pretend passions, emotions, increasingly tied to that by telling more lies and pretending more illusions, pretending more passions and emotions in other stories, other uses of locations connected, intercities connected through time. They've been making instances where people could say, I know him, I remember them from that spot, where those people are involved with an increasing amount of people who time where you're going to walk, and they make right when you come there, in other words, they have a narrative tied to that. and they're all telling sequence shifts commonly, but all differently, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. All locations, areas, and states are criminally foreign influenced of every modern nation in a semi-ancient trap. Boxings, I rap, I tell you things. So we'll get them. So there are male and female. There are white and black female judges involved with predicate acts with KKK themed and black. Actually, by a black officer named MPL Floyd. And or someone switching voices, can't sound like a different voice too. So then you have people involved with falsified police reports with judges, prosecutors, and they're making excuses for them. Because these are also people as acts with overt criminal enterprises. This is the Eastern States Narcotics Drugs Task Force. The Eastern States Narcotics Drugs Task Force is with an MPO Floyd, involved with people at UConn. Also, the UConn students are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with racketeering on off Harvard Hospital with overt criminal enterprises per them. And as the roles with identity thefts and frauds instances relevant, as falsified police reports roles, as roles with other people's cases and depositions used and things like that used to pretend illusions per all the offensive racketeering proofs that they have to hide from and hurt out of being spoken about, the interbranch per the method to it. That begins with what they're doing now with the child campuses, because how they came through with sick fakes, CT breaks, folds, and found the seed. You must gather round, all native pure, please read. Please get them to give me a name to respond to. In other words, I'm not speaking rude to them. I don't know anyone yet. And we're not going to have some background conversation. I have nothing to discuss. I want to know who's involved with these judges and with these cops forging and switching names. They brought me before that court. They didn't give me. A lot of people they didn't give writing. They pretended other. They put charges. And they confessed, demonstrated, recorded. They switched officers' names. They've been doing this for a lot of time. For a lot of years, intercities, they've been coordinating predicate acts and wrongdoing, identity thefts and frauds instances, made up and real into databases and spoken. The same people involved with this. So please don't let them hide and plot. I want, because they have religious, they have different, they have imams. And they have the religious locations. And they have the different types of religions even. But they have like where they'll go with prisons, where they'll go with hospitals. Also being and having been employed. Also the family members. Some of the interbranch involved also have family members at the campuses. And at the private locations, not by accident. All involved with collusion. And with people on off body dumping spots, involved with wire crimes that involve police and confessions, uses of others' names as strangers, as slanders that are also involved in the courts because they use these tricks methods where they bring people before courts and they use time simultaneously too fast and too slow. Quality of fact cheating nature as criminal insidiousness to pretend not to understand things, to make more things up without allowing brought up how they've been doing that since I was a kid. Not just against me, intercities. This is what is actually recorded. So there's a Debbie Gold, and there's a former Mayor Gold, and there is a Tim O'Brien and Andrew O'Brien, and there's a Dennis O'Brien. I don't know his mother's name, and they have extended family members, also with a whole bunch of other Wethersfield police, and their extended families, like an O'Neill family, is one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Involved also with wire crimes with Wethersfield police on and off the campuses, uses of their kids to spread lies about other people, putting their business and other people sickly criminally. Don't tell your kid, don't pretend your kids in Wethersfield police. Don't pretend to your kids that you use information legitimately, that you're legitimate. In fact, retire or respond. Pick one name and sequence. give me writing to respond to. Now, I told you this for years. Since before the World Trade Center